in and says, I'm eating and drinking with my boys, and you have a problem with that, right? What'd you expect? Where we at? Anybody got anything to add? Okay. 24. And I tell you the truth, whoever hears my word and believes him who sent me has eternal life and will not be condemned. He has crossed over from death to life. I tell you the truth, a time is coming and has now come when the dead will hear the voice of the Son of God, and those who hear will live. For as the Father has life in himself, so he has granted the Son to have life in himself, and he has given him authority to judge because he is the Son of Man. So this is all huge words. These are big words in these guys' ears, and he's basically saying he has life within himself, and just these are God things. You're saying you have God stuff. And what kind of hearing are we talking about here? It says, I tell you the truth, whoever hears my word and believes him who sent me has eternal life and will not be condemned. What kind of hearing is this? You tripped over Jesus?
Those who want to listen to him?
Yeah, it's a fullness. It's like when Jesus and Peter and all the boys are saying, those who have an ear, let them hear. How many people had ears? Probably every one of them, right? We're all kind of born with two of them. Say we had one guy who didn't, right? But you certainly have Jesus saying, listen, those who have ears, let them hear. And I always, yesterday I was disciplining my little girl, and I go, listen, you don't listen to me. And she goes, my ears are open. I'm like, listen, you're not hearing me. She goes, they're closed? And I'm thinking, how do you tell a 3.5-year-old these things? You're like, no, they're open, but you're not listening. So they're closed. It's like, anyway. It's the same with us, because certainly when we travel this road of our own thing, right? We've created now, if you're a Pharisee, you created your own source of religion, right? Your own source of this thing, and you have your own makeshift way to the Father, right? And that's when he gets with the rich guy and says, keep the law. And then he raffles off 6 of them and says, listen, how must I inherit eternal life? And then Jesus says, keep the law. And he raffles off some, right? Was Jesus saying you could keep them all? No, he's saying, listen, man, I'll meet you halfway. I'll give you 6 that you kept. How's that sound? Right? And in Jesus' humbleness and grace, he says, I'm not even going to mention the other 4, because it's going to blow the rest of them. You know what I'm saying? So he comes in and just really rattles this guy. And I think it's funny that all the guy had to do just to submit himself and just get before Jesus, and Jesus says, just sell all you have. Right? And he says, no, and he walks away. Right? So now what have you done? How many commandments have you broken? Right? Let's start with them all. Okay. Where are we at? 24, right? We just did that. Do not be amazed at this, for a time is coming when all who are in the graves will hear his voice and come out. And those who have done good will rise to live, and those who have done evil will rise to be condemned. But because I can do nothing, I judge only as I hear, and my judgment is just. For I seek not to please myself, but him who sent me. So there's probably more than I could possibly explain in there with timing, but when Jesus dies on the cross, I think one of the Gospels mentions that some dead had literally rose from the dead and began to walk around. And obviously hundreds of people had saw what was going on as far as Jesus being risen again. But I can't remember where that was. So, you guys can smack me around if you want. But that's at least one of the opportunities this happened. And I also try not to rule out the idea that obviously a lot of people are spiritually dead as well. And so we spiritually dead hear his voice as well. But he's talking about both, I'm sure. 31. If I testify about myself, my testimony is not valid. There is another who testifies in my favor, and I know that his testimony about me is valid. You have sent to John, and he has testified to the truth. Not that I accept human testimony, but I mention it that you may be saved. John was a lamp that burned and gave light, and you chose for a time to enjoy his light. So who testified to Jesus during John's situation? We had 2 situations. When he gets baptized, John testifies, correct, that Jesus is exactly who he says he is, right? And then we have, who else testifies? God himself has this moment of testifying, right? So, anyway, Anything to add with that?
I think there's almost like an accountability with this. I mean, I think Christ that created the entire universe could kind of just come and do whatever he wants and do it on his own, but he's involving John and all these prophecies and God, and it's like there's this communion of accountability that he's not just this lone soldier. It's just kind of interesting the community that is surrounding everything that he's doing. That strikes me as.
And Miller's on a good point here, because every single, at least in my perspective, maybe you guys could find one I haven't found, almost everything you want to believe in the scriptures, right? You want to believe it. Jesus holds himself accountable to what? Where 2 or 3 witnesses are, it is true. So every single time you find some loner situation here and you're thinking, yeah, that's true, that's a scary moment, right? It might be. But certainly God, somewhere in the scriptures, has given testimony to where 2 or 3 witnesses are. And there's almost in every single thing I've ever tried to understand the scriptures, Jesus has got 2 or 3 witness situations there. To where that topic, that idea, whatever's going on, Jesus says, you know, I am this. Well, man, I wonder if we can find something else that proves that. And you'll find that Jesus himself holds himself accountable to at least 2 witnesses on everything. Everything. I mean, everything I've ever found. So you'll find in the scriptures, you don't have to really get on this lone soldier idea. If it's true, you'll find 2 or 3 witnesses that back that up through the scriptures. And I'm not talking about people, but witnesses. There's a witness. There's something else mentioned in the scriptures out of the 66 books that has testified to that being true as well. And you'll find it all the time. So Miller's onto something there. So Jesus holds himself accountable, not only to John, obviously God, you know, but also to what he was doing and the timing of what he was doing it. So you have sent to John, and he has testified of the truth. Not that I accept human testimony, but I mentioned it so that you may be saved. John was a lamp that burned and gave light, and you chose for a time to enjoy his light. What was going on with John? John's hanging out for a little bit. He gets a very short life. What happens after he comes out on the scene? Starts his ministry. Jesus is one of his special guests. And then what happens? He's put in prison, right? Then you have the tradition that stands that says basically they had a little party going on, and I can't remember the name, so I'm going to butcher this whole story, but the king, I guess, was kind of in love with this girl, and the girl says, do something for me. He says, I'll do whatever you want. And then he got kind of caught with his pants down because she said, I want John the Baptist's head. And he's like, whoa. I wasn't planning on going there, but because he's a man of his word, publicly, whose head got cut off and served on a platter? John the Baptist. So it's not the way you want to go. But no one else really said that, Jesus was in my congregation, like that. Other people, whatever. That was a bad deal. I have a testimony weightier than that of John. For the very work that the Father has given me to finish, and which I am doing, testifies that the Father has sent me. And the Father who sent me has himself testified concerning me. You have neither heard his voice, nor seen his form, nor does his word dwell in you. For you do not believe the one he sent. You diligently study the scriptures because you think that by them you possess eternal life. These are the scriptures that testify about me, yet you refuse to come to me to have life. It's right here. So, that is huge. Jesus says these scriptures that you claim, your pride belongs in these words, and yet they are me. They are of me, they're about me, they all point to me. Everything about them is me, and yet you refuse to come to me to have life. He says you diligently study them. So your faith in the scriptures can supersede your relationship with God. You agree? It's certainly this is possible, because you can get this legalistic pattern that says this is the way we do it, right? And then you forget that anything without love is what? And who is love? He has a name. God is love. Okay. So, anyway, remember, the reason we're having this argument is because